Tatsuya Ichihashi's case is not just a crime story. It's a chilling, heartbreaking, and deeply disturbing tale of obsession, deception, and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. It's the story of a young woman full of life, whose dreams were shattered in the most horrific way imaginable. It's the story of a man who went to grotesque lengths to change his own face, believing he could outrun the consequences of his actions. And it's the story of a family who lost their daughter, left only with pain, grief, and the desperate need for justice. This is the case of Tatsuya Ichihashi, the man who deformed his own face to escape justice, a life full of promise. Lindsay Ann Hawker was a 22-year-old British woman with a passion for life, adventure, and learning. She had a warm, radiant energy, the kind of person who lit up a room just by being in it. She came from a loving family in England. Her parents, Bill and Julia Hawker, adored her. She was their pride, their joy, their everything. Lindsay was ambitious. She had studied at the University of Leeds, excelling academically, and after graduating, she decided to explore the world. Japan fascinated her, the culture, the language, the experience of living somewhere completely different. When she got a job teaching English there, she was thrilled. She had no idea that her dream would become a nightmare. A chance encounter with a killer March 2007. Lindsay was in Japan, enjoying her time as an English teacher. She had settled into her new life, made friends, and was excited about the future. Then, one day, she met a man. His name was Tatsuya Ichihashi. At first glance, he seemed harmless, quiet, almost shy. He told Lindsay he wanted to learn English. He was persistent, maybe even a little awkward, but he didn't seem dangerous. Lindsay, kind and trusting, agreed to meet him again to discuss lessons. She wasn't naive. She took precautions. She let people know where she was going, but some monsters don't show their true face until it's too late. The last moments. Lindsay went to Ichihashi's apartment, not knowing she was walking into a death trap. What happened next is a nightmare too horrific to imagine. Inside that small, dark apartment, Ichihashi attacked her. She fought back. She screamed. She tried to escape, but he was stronger. He overpowered her. Her final moments were filled with terror, then silence. Lindsay Hawker was gone, and Tatsuya Ichihashi was left with the consequences of his crime. But instead of facing them, he did something unthinkable. The discovery, Lindsay's friends and colleagues grew worried when she didn't return. She had told them where she was going. Now she was missing. Concern turned to panic. The police were called. Investigators traced her last known movements and arrived at Ichihashi's apartment. They knocked inside. Ichihashi felt the walls closing in. He knew what was coming, so he ran. A desperate escape. Barefoot, frantic, desperate, he bolted past the officers. The police chased him, but he was fast. He had planned for this. He had trained for this. Within seconds, he vanished. By the time officers stormed his apartment, he was gone. But what they found inside was horrifying. In the bathroom, inside a bathtub filled with sand, was Lindsay's lifeless body. It was clear what had happened. Lindsay had fought for her life, but she never stood a chance. A ghost in the shadow. With Lindsay's murder now exposed, Japan was in shock. A manhunt was launched. Airports, train stations, border crossings, everywhere was on high alert. But Ichihashi had disappeared like a ghost. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months, and still, nothing. But Ichihashi wasn't just hiding. He was transforming a monster's metamorphosis. He knew his face was plastered across every newspaper, every TV screen, every police report, so he changed it. First, he performed grotesque self-surgeries. He used scissors to cut his eyelids, trying to alter their shape. He sliced his lips with razors. He pressed his nose against hard surfaces, trying to change its structure. The pain must have been unbearable, but he didn't care. He was willing to mutilate himself just to stay free. Then, he took it further. He visited plastic surgeons, paying huge sums of money for professional facial reconstruction, nose jobs, eyelid surgery, jaw reshaping. The transformation was so extreme that even facial recognition technology struggled to match his new face with the old one. He became unrecognizable, and for over 2.5 years he remained hidden in plain sight. The manhunt intensifies. Meanwhile, Lindsay's family refused to let her case be forgotten. Bill and Julia Hawker fought tirelessly for justice. They traveled to Japan. They spoke to the media. They pleaded with the public. Someone had to know something. Their daughter had been murdered, and her killer was still out there. The pressure on authorities increased. New leads were followed. Sightings were reported. And then, finally, a breakthrough. Justice catches up. November 2009. A plastic surgeon in Osaka recognized a man who had come in for multiple procedures. Something about his eyes seemed familiar. He reported him to the authorities. Shortly after, Ichihashi was arrested at a ferry terminal. The 2-year nightmare was finally over, but for Lindsay's family, nothing could undo the pain. The trial. During his trial, Ichihashi showed no real remorse. He claimed he never intended to kill Lindsay, but the facts told a different story. A person who commits an accident doesn't run. They don't mutilate their own face to escape. They don't hide in the shadows for years. In 2011, he was sentenced to life in prison. But even behind bars, he did something truly disturbing, the killer's book. While in prison, Ichihashi wrote a book detailing his time on the run. He described how he had survived, how he had changed his appearance, how he had evaded justice. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't remorse. It was self-obsession. The book enraged the public. It disgusted Lindsay's family. It was a final insult to the young woman he had taken from the world.